All right. Hello, everyone, and happy Thursday. Good afternoon. Good morning. You might be joining us. I think we even had a registrant from Hong Kong, which they said it was going to be 3 a.m. So hopefully they're watching the recording of this. But thank you and welcome in. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join myself. My name is Ryan Embry. I'm the VP of Marketing here at Travel Media Group, and with me is...
Hey guys, I'm Cassidy Quintana, the brand ambassador here at Travel Media Group.
And we are so excited to bring this presentation to you again. And we're going to talk about that just here in a second. But before we get rolling with the amazing content that we have planned for you and we've created for you today, did want to give a couple housekeeping items. I have the privilege and honor of working with some incredible thought leaders here at Travel Media Group. I absolutely encourage, if this is a passion for you, social media marketing, reputation management, just digital marketing in general, absolutely suggest that you go and follow these thought leaders on LinkedIn. You can find their information over here to the left or right hand side. Make sure you're also seeing both myself as well as the presentation. That is the best way to kind of digest this information. Should be some panels up at the top if you're not seeing those. It is an interactive console. We encourage you, explore, click on links. We've got additional links for you. We've got registration for our next webinar. If you're going to be going out to ILHA's Inspire USA and joining me out in Vegas, go ahead and click that like emoji. Would love to connect with you. We're headed out there next month, like I said, to Las Vegas, both myself and our CTO, Jason Lee. We'd love to speak with you in person out in Vegas. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get rolling today. We got a lot of ground to cover. And before we know it, by the end of this webinar, we might even have some more changes to social media. That's how quickly things seem to change in this space. But not only are we doing this co-hosting for the first time, both myself and Cassidy, this is an introduction to a brand new series here at Travel Media Group. Now, we've been doing educational webinars and conducting them for hotels and hotel management companies for about a decade now. And what we found is we revisited some of our older content and found that some of that content, some of that information needs to be refreshed. Right? So much has changed in the social media landscape that just a few years. So this actually webinar, this first webinar I conducted back in January 2020. A lot's happened since then, as if you might remember. But 4,000 views of the webinar. We felt like this was the perfect way to kick off this new series because it was a topic that so many hoteliers specifically were interested in. As I mentioned before, social media changes so fast. So what we're doing in this new series is actually taking some of the content that we shared back in 2020, see how that's changed and evolved to where we are in today, 2025, going into 2026. So before we go ahead and get kicked off, I'm going to pass it over to Cassidy to help us tailor our presentation a little bit more for the audience that we have today.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ryan. So we're going to launch a poll before we jump into all the great information we have for you guys. So whether you're just starting out on Instagram, you've been on Instagram for years, we want to know kind of what you're looking for in 2026. So when you think about your Instagram strategy as a whole, what would you say is your biggest goal? So either you want to be posting better content, you want to get more engagement on that content you're posting, you want to build up your followers, or you just want to be more consistent with your posting. So we'll give you a few seconds to answer this poll for us, but just thinking about your overall strategy as we head into the new year, a lot of the information we're going to be covering today is going to give you tips and tricks for all of these. And this also helps us tailor our information as we think about webinars that we do in 2026. So give you a few seconds to answer this poll. It really, really helps us out as we move forward through this webinar and then as we go into the new year.
Yeah, we'll give everyone a couple more seconds to engage with it. We'll show the results. It doesn't show any of your information, but it was interesting. This was actually the same poll that I conducted back in 2020. And to see probably the results of this will be very, very fascinating to see if some of that has changed, because in 2020, it was a completely different platform. Travel Media Group, who partners with Hotels for Social Solutions, we had just recently launched Instagram for hotels. So it was kind of new to us as well. We were learning the platform as well, but looks like we've got some great engagement here. So we'll go ahead and share the results and let Cassidy speak to them.
This is kind of exactly where I thought we'd be sitting, right? More engagement. As social media has evolved, people are leaning a little less from building their followers. Most of y'all know what you should be posting and are good at posting that, but getting that engagement up, right? Sometimes it's hard to see that engagement come through. So it makes sense. We have some great strategies coming up in this webinar, but thank you so much for answering that poll. That's definitely what we see as being the biggest trend and that hoteliers want to see on their social media.
Yeah, this lines up perfectly with the content that we have tailored for today, where we're talking about how followers in that number, it's not just a number anymore. It's actually about the number of engagement that is actually going to be more important. Seeing comments, likes, shares, actually connecting with your travelers. And looking back at 2020, you think about Instagram. It was really a lot of still photos. It was a place where we'd throw a lot of filters on our pictures to try to make it look just right, just perfect. And really, when we logged on to Instagram, if you remember back then, it was really just to see the content of our friends and family. We weren't going to businesses. We weren't trying the explore page, which we're going to talk about in a minute. But it was really about the content that we were sharing and those that were closest to us were sharing. And that number of followers, again, was very important back then. I'll let Cassidy speak to where we are now.
Yeah, when we think about Instagram now, it's honestly done a complete 180, right? It's not just photos anymore. It's a multifaceted platform. We have videos now, we have shopping, you can live stream, you can talk to AI on your Instagram app. So a lot of changes have happened and we're almost leaning away from that picture perfect, right? Especially with AI coming through a lot. Now people are wanting to see real images, authenticity. It's sometimes hard to believe what's real and what's AI. I have fallen for many AI things on Instagram before. But now when you log into Instagram, right, that feed is different in general. Before, it was a much more chronological order. You were only seeing content from the people that you followed. Now we have an algorithm driven feed. So your Instagram is taking what you've engaged with, who you're following, and feeding you stuff that it thinks you might be interested in, right? So now when you go onto your main feed, you're seeing photos, you're seeing videos, even from people you don't follow. Now we're getting on Instagram to see what celebrities we love are up to, follow influencers, and most importantly, follow the businesses and hotels that we like, right? So super different, right? We're seeing a push in e-commerce too, and we'll talk a little bit about that later on with AI and some integrations that are happening there. But like we mentioned earlier, engagement rate is kind of the most important factor when you're analyzing how successful is my Instagram.
Yeah, and we saw that just in the last slide with the results of that poll. So again, kind of looking back at the first webinar that I conducted in 2020, this was one of the visuals I used, and it was to show in the short amount of time, if anyone remembers that original Instagram logo. And it was funny when we ran through this the other day, I actually saw that first original logo of Instagram was a Polaroid picture because it was so picture first, and it was just supposed to be a mobile first app for pictures. Now, we're going to talk about in a second, the platform has made a lot of changes to make it video first and how critical that is.
Exactly. So since Ryan last talked to you guys about social media and Instagram in specific, we have had 3 major updates, at least I would say. Of course, there's been probably hundreds of little updates and bug fixes, but the biggest 3, number 1, it has to be Instagram Reels. During the pandemic, we saw TikTok take off completely and everybody else was like, whoa, video is obviously becoming much more popular. So Instagram jumped on that train and now has Reels. We saw the launch of Meta Business Suite. So obviously Instagram and Facebook are owned together. Meta Business Suite is a great way to tie your 2 profiles together, just making sure that you can post content on both. You can see your analytics all in one place. It's really become a user-friendly platform to make it easy to push your digital marketing out there. And this year, Instagram hit 3 billion users, and that's continuing to climb. So as we'll see in the next slide, this is going to keep going. So if you're not on Instagram or you feel like you're behind, now is the perfect time to jump on this because these updates and these numbers are just going to continue to grow.
And just like Cassidy said, they have grown. And there were a lot of times I in 2020 was talking and putting a lot of parallels to Facebook. And the reason I did that was because, we started selling our social media solution about 15 years ago. And during that time, a lot of hoteliers, when we were talking to them, were saying, I feel like I missed the boat with Facebook. A lot of my competitors are on here. They're posting. They've got profiles with a lot of following. They have consistent strategies, and I'm not there. I feel like I missed the boat. And my challenge to them at that time in 2020 was, do not miss the boat again, because Instagram is going to reach even further. And we've now gone through an entire evolution and revolution of our social media that we now have ages associated with some of the social media platforms out there like Facebook and Instagram. But you can see when we conducted that webinar, just the absolute exponential growth of followers and adults using that platform has grown, because obviously something very significant happened in 2020, right? And it caused a lot of people to start looking at their phones a little bit more and changing the way that we use social media.
Absolutely.
So speaking of on Facebook, again, this is now known as an older generation social media platform, right? And I think Cassidy will say in a minute, this was actually one of the first platforms she was on, but not really using it as much.
Exactly, Ryan. Yeah, Facebook was the first social media I got when I was 12, probably too soon, but I wanted to be seeing what all my friends were doing, what everybody was doing. But now that number is going down, right? Of course, I still have Facebook, but like I told Ryan the other day, I maybe check it once every few months just to see if I've missed anything from distant relatives, right? But honestly, I'm not going on there as much. A lot of my shift has gone toward Instagram, and these numbers don't lie. I fall between that 25 and 34 age group, right? All my friends, we rarely talk about Facebook. We're really pushing Instagram. And I feel like these numbers are just going to continue to grow. So it's going to be interesting to see, if we talk about this in the next 5 years, just how much this number jumps, because now we have Generation Alpha, if you can believe it, that's getting to that age where they're going to start being on these social media platforms. So the numbers don't lie. And we're going to see probably those ages continue to just grow apart from each other.
Yeah, as marketers, we're always trying to diversify the audience that we're trying to market to, right? That we're trying to showcase our product, or specifically in hospitality, our hotel to. This is two completely different age groups here, generations that are looking at your content. We might be at a place here soon where we're almost going to have to tailor the content for each social media platform to speak to the audience and the demographic that's using these social media platforms. It's so important. And, for any hotelier out there that thinks, hey, I'm just on one of these, they'll eventually find me. This chart should be a huge, caution symbol to you that just because you're on one doesn't mean you're covering the entire span of travelers out there. And last point I'll make before we move on from this, if you see this and say, hey, listen, there's not a lot of purchasing power right now in that younger generation. Every single day, Gen Z is getting more and more purchasing power. And if you don't think that they're influential in the travel, talk to some teenage kids that are literally steering their parents on where they should travel next based on spaces like Instagram out there. It's very, very powerful, and that power is just getting more and more dominant right now in the social media landscape.
Perfect. Yeah, exactly what Ryan said. So now let's give some tips and tricks on how we can make sure that your Instagram is optimized, right? So a lot of the things that Ryan spoke to 5 years ago is very similar, just some little minor changes that are really going to help you out. So number one, making sure that your Instagram profile name is correct. And when I say correct, I mean the same way it's listed on your website, your Facebook, any OTAs you're on, making sure that that's the same, because you don't want to have any disconnect when someone goes from Facebook to Instagram and they're like, I'm not sure if this is the same property. So just making sure that your name is the same across the board.
Yeah, absolutely. Just because you're the Hampton Inn, Southwest Austin, University of Texas, doesn't mean your traveler knows that, right? Make sure that the name is so important. It has so much SEO value, AIO value as well. Make sure that name is consistent and has continuity throughout your marketing.
Exactly. And then number
Sorry.
two, that's okay. We'll talk about the biography. So this is very similar to as it's always been on Instagram, but making sure that you're talking about what kind of property you are and where you are. So now there's a great feature. You can add that address to make sure that there's no discrepancies between any of your social media, your website as well.
Yeah, and there's new features released every single day, which we're going to talk about just in a second. But even adding those emojis, putting a little bit of flavor to your biography. You might have, been on the last webinar and said, "Okay, my bio looks great right now." Get back in there, make sure it's refreshed. I would do it as an exercise every year to make sure that it's still up to date and relevant.
Exactly. And then kind of on the foothills of that, your website URL too. So making sure that your booking link is easy to find. Also something you can do that's really beneficial is a link tree. So if you have multiple social media profiles that you want people to be able to find, you're able to put not only your website, but all of those platforms onto a link tree. So then when they open that link tree, it keeps you in the app too. So the link tree opens up and then they're able to figure out where they want to go from there.
URLs, something very important to keep your eye on in the upcoming months. Cassidy shared it in our Hotel Marketing Insider LinkedIn newsletter that they are actually considering starting to put URLs in posts, which would be a massive change to the way Instagram is done. So hotel website URLs, something definitely to keep a close eye on, especially over the next couple months.
Yeah, and one thing I'll add to that is that just shows the way Instagram is going towards, right? Because before they were
Yeah.
so adamant on not adding links to their posts because they never wanted anybody to leave the platform. But now that they're considering it means that they're looking into people being able to purchase things even more from Instagram. So just keep that in mind. We'll be following that as it changes as well. And then the last thing I'll point out is making sure your profile photo is current and high quality. Again, that cohesiveness across all of your social media platforms so that everybody can tell for sure that this is the same property. I was either looking at their website or their Facebook.
Yes. Hotel brand image or logo is not a good Instagram profile for your property in 2025. Make sure it's a recognizable photo that has some continuity between, again, your marketing landscape.
Exactly. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about content. This is something that we talk about every day. This is the content that our social media team here is posting. But number one, most likely your biggest selling point of when people are doing their research is your amenities and features, right? It doesn't take much, and I say this every time, to take your iPhone, walk around your property for 5 to 10 minutes. You can probably snap 30 to 50 photos. That's the content that people want to see, right? When I go search for a hotel, I want to see what they have to offer before I'm booking with them. And again, making sure that your photos are real and authentic. Don't feel like you need to put a filter on everything because that's not what your hotel looks like in real life, right? So making sure that we lean into that authenticity when we're posting these photos.
Yeah, and speaking of the poll at the top of this webinar, I know more engagement was the obviously top answer, but within those was better content. And one of the things that I always, an exercise that I'll do with hotels when we're talking about social media is actually digging into your reputation and sentiment data to see what people love best. Obviously, that's the things that and features that your guests are talking the most about. If that's not strong alignment with your Instagram feed, you're really missing. There's a gap there, and you're missing the mark. I would also tell a hotel to lean in to negative feedback sometimes, right? If you're a noisy hotel or if parking is an issue at your property, make sure you're educating your guest on the way there through the booking journey and through the guest experience that, it anticipate that it could be noisy or there is limited parking at the hotel. These are things that you can share within your social media to, again, just help educate so it's not so much of a jolt and you can set the proper expectations.
Absolutely. And then local events and stories. A lot of the time, you may feel like I'm posting the same redundant content about my pool or about our grills or whatever. Local events is something that's most likely changing all the time, right? Especially if there's a venue near you, if there's a restaurant, if there's sporting events nearby. These are great things to post about because, again, with that research, if I'm going to stay at your property, it most likely is because I'm doing something else in the area, or maybe I want to do something else in the area too. So leaning into that, this provides great filler for when you don't really want to post about your property again, because it's the same old thing. This also really drives engagement because not only could you get engagement from your guests, but tagging those small businesses or tagging wherever the event is, they'll return the same love too, right? Especially if you can partner with some of these businesses, give discounts to the restaurant next door. Same thing with some of these venues. Hey, here's the hotels nearby. Create those partnerships, and this is great evergreen content that you can incorporate.
Yeah, I'm going to speak to those local stories because outside of doing these educational webinars, one of my favorite aspects of my job is I actually host a podcast called The Sweet Spot and get the privilege and honor to talk to a lot of hoteliers. And one of my favorite questions that I pose to a lot of them in my episodes is, what's a fun fact about either your property or community? And 9 times out of 10, the answer that they give me is not something that's readily available or shown on their social media or even their website sometimes. Do not take for granted that your traveler knows everything about your city. They want to feel involved in the community. That's why they came to experience. And you know, sometimes those are the aspects of a trip that make it most memorable, are those stories. So make sure you're sharing those. Great tip.
Exactly. And then number three, probably one of the easiest things you can capture too is involving your staff behind the scenes. Usually, when you take a look at guest sentiment, what makes a 5-star hotel stay? It's usually the staff, right? They were super friendly, they were helpful, they gave me great recommendations. The bartender was awesome, the chef's food is delicious. These people want to be involved in your social strategy, right? They're coming to work every day. They're working hands on with these guests. Make them a part of that strategy. I said this in one of my previous webinars, but I went to a resort in Mexico back in the beginning of the year. I got there and I felt like I knew every single person that works there because they were posting about them on social media, right? They were posting about the waiters, they were posting about housekeeping. I felt like I already knew them, even though they didn't know me. But these are people that want to be involved and most likely have great stories to tell as well.
Yeah, you know, again, have the opportunity to speak to a lot of leaders of management companies, sometimes brands. And, you know, one of the topics we're always touching on is a strong culture, and the staffing shortage, unfortunately, has kind of plagued our industry over the last couple of years. I will say, featuring your staff, getting them involved, especially this younger generation who wants to feel a part of something, loves the recognition. This is a great, easy way, which, you know, a younger generation sees a lot of currency in this to highlight and showcase your staff and your individuals on property. These are the people that make that hotel. It's not just the rooms, it's not just amenities, it's the people. Why not include them into your process and into your strategy?
Yeah, kind of same thing, right? What makes your hotel is your staff, but it's also your guests. So making sure that you're leaning into using your guests as brand ambassadors. Most likely these people are staying at your hotel and I guarantee they are taking some photos, right? I know I take photos every time I travel. It's super easy when they check in or check out. Hey, if you took any photos, make sure you tag us, send it to us. This is a great way to get your name out there. Of course, I can look at a hotel's social media, but I'm going to trust my friend's review of a property much more than I'm going to trust what the hotel is telling me. So it's a great way to incorporate this too into your strategy. You're able to repost these photos with their permission, of course, but if they're posting it, make sure that they're tagging you because this is stuff you can put on your stories too.
Yeah, and since Instagram is a mobile first application and platform, a lot of the time it's going to give these users the opportunity to tag their location. And in that, you can get involved, right? Just a comment here, a like there, that goes a long way in what. Again, the best answer to the poll is a lot of your goals in 2026. How can I have more engaging content? You got to engage with your users, with your guests.
Exactly.
So I'm going to go ahead and take over, talk about some of the things that are actually still true, right? There's been probably some evolution, but still some true things that we talked about in 2020 that still apply as we near 2026. One of them being hashtags. This is still a place where especially the younger generation is actually using this as a search engine. They're actually using social as the new search, which is actually the title of a white paper that Cassidy wrote. But hashtags can be used, should be used in some of your posts because it is still a place where people actually start their search.
Exactly. And with that too, kind of going back to making sure you're telling your guests to tag you. If you have a branded hashtag and if you don't have one, this is a great time to get one. You can give that hashtag out, right? Make sure you use this hashtag. And that is an easier way for you to find photos too. If they don't put your location, at least if they put the hashtag, click that hashtag and you're able to see all the posts that people have used. And again, with the Explorer page that we'll talk about in a little bit, that's where it's most likely pulling a lot of that stuff from, is the hashtags that people are using.
Yeah, great point. Like a good wedding hashtag, right? Like that used to be the thing back in the
Yes.
day. Audience and analytics, so important. This is something that we are talking to our hotel, our social hotel partners about on a monthly basis with our client success team. We are looking through. We're seeing what posts. Uh, we're engaged with, we're seeing the results from our audience, and we're tailoring our content to make sure that it's matching, it's getting that engagement, it's getting the it's getting the proper kind of due from your travelers.
Yeah, and one thing I'll add there is making sure that you're looking at Facebook and Instagram, because like we mentioned, those demographics can be completely different, and one piece of
Yeah,
content may do really well on Instagram and not as well on Facebook. So just making sure that you are covering all your bases.
great point. Ad spend. This is something that is top of mind here at Travel Media Group. We just celebrated a huge milestone, just past the $1 million mark in social media ad spend invested for our hotel partners. So critical, but it doesn't need to be these huge amounts of money in order to see those results that you're looking for. Again, using those audience and analytics, even a $5 boost can go a long way.
Yep, I'll just add consistency over quantity, right? The more you're boosting with smaller amounts, usually the better your engagement will be, rather than just putting a bunch of money on one post.
Agreed. Yes. Social media ad spend without the proper partner can be a bottomless pit. They're not going to not take your money. Make sure you're using it effectively and you're tracking that as well. And finally, Instagram stories and highlights, right? This is so important. It was kind of new back in 2020, but we're using it in a completely different light here in 2025, 2026. Can be a great place to really tell your story, right, Cassidy?
Yeah, exactly. Especially those highlights. Those are, think about it as chapters of your hotel's book, right? So these can be broken down to our restaurant, our amenities, hours, etc. I can click on one of those stories to get the information I need right away without having to dig for it.
Yeah. And you look at those highlights at the top of that social media page example there. It resembles a lot of what a website is, right? And again, in a time where we're using Instagram for search, this could be your new quote unquote website here with all of those different elements and features of your hotel experience.
Exactly. All right, let's touch on what's newer, I would say. Influencer marketing and UGC. I already kind of touched on UGC, but we have seen influencer marketing blow up, right? People are quitting their jobs to be full-time travel influencers, family influencers. If you have the budget to do this, now there's micro all the way to macro influencers. Take a look into that, because again, people trust influencers, whether it's because they want to be like them, they want to emulate their lifestyle, or they just trust their opinions. These are great ways to put your brand out there without you having to do the work and creating the content.
Yeah, again, make sure you got a trusted partner doing this and you're doing your due diligence before diving in.
Exactly. And then Reels. We know that TikTok has blown up. Instagram is trying to compete with Reels. Now it's taking up 50% of the content that's on Instagram. So maybe in the future, this will become its own separate app. But I know when I scroll my feed every day, usually it's a post, a video, a post, a video. And half the time it's people I'm not even following. So if you're not posting videos, you need to be.
Yeah, if we ever do Insta-Awesomer again, this would be the topic or subject that I would highlight as what's really critical and next. You want to see how places like Google are really prioritizing it. Search your hotel or hotels in your area, and there's a new tab there called short form videos, and it's made up of all YouTube shorts and Instagram reels. Very, very important right now.
For sure. And then I'll touch on the Explore page and AI search kind of together. So this is a newer feature, especially the AI search. So I did a simple cool hotels in Florida search. AI is going to give me an entire paragraph of hotels that it's going to recommend for me, right? And all of these posts that you see below are also using hashtags. They're most likely using their location. Their Instagram is fully optimized to make sure that they're showing up in these searches. And just like Ryan mentioned, that is also being pulled into Google. So just making sure that you're using those hashtags, tagging location. This will give people a personalized search, especially for stuff that I'm interested in, like the pool or the beach. My algorithm knows that. So if you have that to offer, make sure that you're posting that and using those correct hashtags.
Yeah, Cassidy, feed that algorithm, right? Luckily we live in and work in hospitality. Almost everyone loves to travel, right? You're constantly on places like Instagram searching. You want to make sure that you're not missing out and staying on the sidelines there.
And probably one of the biggest things we're watching over this past year is Expedia integration on Instagram, right? I was shocked to see this. I think it's can be good. Maybe it can be bad for some of these properties that are not optimized on social media. But this is really interesting, right? If I see a reel I'm interested in, I can send it to Expedia's page and it's going to send me an entire itinerary with hotel recommendations, prices, things to do. So imagine you're not on Instagram, you're not even having the opportunity to be featured in this.
Yeah, this is huge. And seeing this, it's going to be key for the hospitality industry. Expedia, obviously, if you're still asking what the ROI of social media is in 2025, 2026, or even trying to, we talk to a lot of hotel marketers that might even be on this webinar right now, that haven't been able to convince their higher ups of the ROI or the benefit and value of being on social media. If this doesn't show a huge red flag that Expedia is diving into Instagram because of how much it values and how much purchasing power that it thinks its users have, this is the answer to that question.
And one thing I'll add is now that we're possibly seeing it with booking and TikTok, and that's probably a whole nother webinar we can do. But this stuff is just going to continue to grow. So make sure, again, you connect with us on LinkedIn because this is stuff that we're following every day.
Yeah, so as we wrap up today, again, we spoke to it at the top of this webinar. So much has changed in just the small amount of time that we've been talking, from 2020 to obviously 2025. This is something that is a passion to us here at Travel Media Group. It's something that we've talked to hoteliers and actually based product development on conversations based on hoteliers. We've done over 1.5 million social media posts for our hotel partners and gained over 1 million social followers for them. This is so critical, so important. And as we get into a slower season, this is the time you need to start connecting with your travelers. Yep. So that you can get those followers, get that engagement up. So when they're ready to start booking, which a couple months from now, they're going to start looking at that spring break. They're going to start looking at that summer vacations. Are you prepared? You don't want to be on the sidelines.
Exactly. And I'll just add to that. We probably won't be able to do this webinar in 5 years, right? We may have to do another one at this time next year because these things are going to continue to evolve. There may be new platforms coming out. I know Instagram is going to keep adding changes like they do almost weekly. So just make sure that you're staying up to date. You're a hotelier, you're busy. This is not the front of your mind all the time, and nor do we expect it to be for you. But this is why it's important to either partner with someone like Travel Media Group or at least connect with us on LinkedIn so that you can stay up to date.